Yeah.
Okay, I think we're actually live now.
Okay.
So we'll try take number two.
Okay.
Welcome to Meet the Masters. I'm Tim Watson. I'm joined today by Master Noreen Khan. Good evening or good afternoon to you, ma'am. How are you?
Yes, and good morning to you, sir. How are you?
I'm great. I am excited to chat with you today.
I'm glad
Uh,
you are excited.
so how are things going right now? How are things going with having the kids home and
So we've been homeschooling. I have Jay at home and he's 13, so he kind of gets on with it. Then I have my 7-year-old who's a little bit more of a diva and likes mummy to sit with her all day. And then I didn't anticipate when I had Noah in September that I would be homeschooling for so long. So the days are quite intense, but like I said to you, I will miss them when they go back because we probably won't get this time with them again. So I've tried to enjoy it as much as I can in the middle of meltdowns and everything else.
right and changing diapers and then
Yeah, and feeding on time and everything else. So yeah, it's great fun.
Awesome. How are things going? I know right now you guys are virtual with the Tong Soo Do training.
Yes, sir, we are. So as I said, I found out like 2 months before we went into the first lockdown last year that I was expecting. So obviously at the time I didn't realize we were going to go into a worldwide pandemic after that. So I had to shield from really early on. So our gut testing, our Midlands gut testing was the first kind of event to get cancelled on 21st of March. So then the students we just held on, waited to hear what was going on. So I teach in Nottingham, so it's quite central. It's like a little bit north to my parents. So I said to the students, we'll kind of hang on and see what's going on, and they all kind of knew that I was expecting. And then the midwife said, actually, your cluster is quite vulnerable, and we don't know enough about it yet. So you'll have to, be careful and not go out too much. So we didn't realize it was probably going to last as long as it was. We thought we'd go back to live classes fairly quickly. So when Dad kind of announced, like, oh, we need to start doing something, it had been 6 or 7 weeks, we need to start keeping our, students training and stuff like that. I kind of said to my guys, well, actually, this will be your opportunity to kind of train with Master Khan, because by that time had come, I was actually with a pregnancy physio for my hips and my pelvis. So I knew I would struggle. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity for them to train with Dad, because they live, the children, for them to travel in the week to go and train with him would be really difficult. So if he's doing live sessions, Zoom sessions, you should go and you should try it out. So some of them for a little while tried it out. And then I had Noah in September, and then we were still kind of in lockdown. And in Nottingham, we've been in tier 4 for quite a long time. So like, I know Mum and Dad actually went back live for a little while, but we couldn't do that. And then obviously when I had him, he was vulnerable. So it was just a lot of shielding and staying home. So in January was actually when I started back for my guys. And I had about 60% of the class come back in January, and now February, 70% have signed up. So mainly the ones that aren't come back are the ones that are like tiny tigers, where they rely on their parents to kind of set. And I think they've been Zooming all day during school, because obviously our guys are in lockdown for schooling too, that the parents kind of said, when you decide to go live or when you go back live, we'll definitely be with you. So yeah, mostly it's the tiny tigers that haven't come back. So we're kind of getting used to it. I mean, it's not easy being in front of a screen. I really struggled because, you don't have that response back from them. I'm like, oh, are we okay, guys? And you're kind of waiting for them to put their thumbs up, and then you're relying on the internet and the Wi-Fi. And I said to you, I had a few issues with Wi-Fi one session, and I didn't want to dishearten them from training. So yeah, it's been quite difficult, but it's great seeing them even virtually. So yeah.
Yeah, ours was the same way. When we went back to actual in person, all of our tigers and dragons and youth beginners, we basically started over, because all those are the ones that quit, because it's like you said, it's really hard to have a parent to help them, and it's so hard to do it over. The people that have like kids in kindergarten or first grade doing Zoom. I have 9 and 11-year-olds. It's hard enough. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's true. I had a 6-year-old, and I said to her, we were doing basic form 1, and I think they rely on the hall quite a lot to turn certain ways on Seiki and Ilbu. And she was doing basic form 1, and she was turning to the right, and I was just like, you need to turn to the left. And she said, she still turned to the right, and I was like, your other left, you know, this side. And she was, and so then she didn't know her left to right. So then I was trying to use her room, what I could see, and I was like, towards your door. And
Right.
yeah, it's really, really difficult. She was only 6, so I couldn't expect her to, but yeah, and then I think it was confusing her. So it can be a little bit difficult, but I mean, if it's the only way you can kind of keep them practicing and stuff like that, I guess it's been great for that. So at least we have something to kind of go on. Otherwise it'd been a whole year we kind of haven't done anything.
Right. So we do have some people saying hello. So we got Natalie Walker says hello. Hannah
Hi,
Russell.
Natalie.
Lindsay Dudgeon says hello.
Yeah,
Marina
Lindsay and Natalie seem to watch all the interviews, don't they? They're great.
Yes,
both
Lindsay
ladies.
and Peter are number one. I think one of my number one fans.
Yeah.
Master Jennifer Couture Kelly says Tung Su.
Master Couture. I fought with her in the final in 2004 World Championship. She's amazing, strong lady.
Awesome. Tracy Digby says good afternoon, Master Noreen.
Hi, Master Digby.
Who else? Master Roman from New Jersey says hello. Oh my goodness.
Oh, hi, sir.
Miguel Soto from California.
Oh, I watched his interview too. Hi, Master Soto.
Master Martin Silk, Master Nigel Crockett, Pam Russell. They're all saying
my GB family.
That's right. If anyone has any specific questions to ask Master Noreen, please let us know. So I guess with that, is that what people call you? They usually call you Master Noreen or Master Khan?
Yeah, so I have my husband's surname, I double barreled it onto the end. But when it comes to training, I just stick to, you know, Noreen Khan. It gets really complicated when you double barrel it up and stuff. And obviously that Khan part of me kind of stayed on. So when I first got my been promoted to masters, I kind of was like, well, what are we going to do? Mum was already Master D, and you know, some people kind of didn't know whether to call her Master Khan either. And then I was like, well, I could be Master Khan Junior for a little while. But yeah, then my sister got promoted too, and then she's Master Aisha. So we kind of all just use our first name, and it just makes it easier rather than using Khan for everyone. Dad's the original, so we'll leave Dad being Master Khan.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. So I obviously understand. So my wife is usually Dr. Master Watson or Mrs. Master or Dr. Mrs. Master.
Yeah, I think when I messaged you, I was like, oh, how do I go about this? So I just put Master Mrs. Watson, because we have Master Allen, who you interviewed already, and then his wife, Master Leslie Allen also. So I kind of sometimes will call her and I'm like, oh, what do I call her? But yeah, we just try to stick it in GB to maybe the first name if there's like a family and they both have the same surname. Otherwise it gets really confusing.
Sure. So, you know, speaking of family, let's talk about being born into a martial arts family. Do you have an early memory of being in the dojang, or is it more like when you
actually... So it's not, yeah, there's not like specific memories. It's quite, because I think when you're born into it, it's there's no pre-Tank Sado stage in your life. So there's not a part, you know, you hear some people's story, oh, when I'm 7, my parents took me here. So that little gap beforehand, they kind of remember that. Whereas for me and my sisters, there was never that little gap beforehand. It was always something we've known that kind of existed around us, or we were involved in, or whatever. So there's no pre-Tank Sado in our life as such. I don't know if you've seen I know you've seen some of the pictures because Dad sent you some of the pictures, but there's one picture of me and I think I'm pre-walking age, so I must be about 8 months, and I'm literally doing sit-ups for fun. So he's obviously taught me how to do that. I couldn't walk, but I could do sit-ups, which was great, you know. And then there's other pictures where I'm in dobok, and I think in them times it was, you know, I was born in early, oh my god, I'm showing my age, but early 80s, and there was no baby dobok, so all my 3 have had a baby dobok, but there wasn't. I was in a full dobok. I'm maybe 2, I think, and the sleeves are like rolled up so far, the trousers are rolled up so far, and I'm kicking and punching, and we have so many of them photos where I'm kicking and punching the target. So I was clearly aware that, you know, I was in dobok a lot and I was punching and kicking and all that kind of thing. So yeah, we've always been around it. And I think as we were growing up and early stages, I think my sisters will also agree with this, that we always had a choice. It wasn't, you know, and the choices literally were, we were either in and we were physically involved and we enjoyed it and we loved Tank Sado as much as our parents did, and, you know, trained everywhere with him, or we were in, because if we weren't going to be physically involved, we were still going to be constantly surrounded by it. So, you know, when both your parents are involved and heavily involved, you know, it is. And Dad used to teach, like growing up, Dad used to teach every single night. So when we were training every single night. If he wasn't teaching his own class, he was at a gut testing at the weekend, you know, all around the UK. And then we were at seminars all around the UK, championships all around the UK. So if we and then we were outside the country too for like European championships, and we were young, so they couldn't leave us at home. So if we were training, that was great. And then obviously my middle sister, she started a bit later, so she would come, we would sit at the back of the class, she would sit at the back of the class, you know. So we've always been around it. And then the house that we lived in when we were younger, and even the house that my parents are in now, it's like a mini headquarters. Like mum is like Mr. Lee, and you know, and it on a GB scale. And I'd come here from school, and I remember really clearly that mum would have all the GUP certificates across the floor, because they would come in big packages, and she'd be separating them for all the different clubs, because obviously we're not full-time studios here, so we have clubs everywhere. So she's separating them out with their membership cards, or dad would be at the other side marking GUP testing paperwork from the weekend, or an instructor would be popping around to collect stuff, or he'd be on the phone to an instructor or to the headquarters, or you know, there was something all the time. So it was literally eat, sleep, breathe, tank to do as we were growing up. And you know, we didn't know no different. That was just normal for us. So yeah, so we were constantly surrounded from it. There was no, we weren't going to be training, we still were going to be in it. So yeah, but you know, we all are involved in it, which is great. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
my kids are kind of in the same boat where, you know, I had this conversation with my youngest. It's like, it's okay if you don't want to do it. If you are going to do it, however, you need to be engaged and you know,
definitely you need to focus on it as much. Yeah, and they're young, so it's really, really difficult. I have a 7-year-old, and she trains, and she's an orange belt, and you know, there's some days where she's totally into it, and then other days where, you know, we're in our own little world. And I'm guessing we were probably like that when we were younger too, as much as we don't want to admit it, but yeah, we were probably like that.
So I know you told me to ignore some of the pictures that your dad was sending me, but he said that was 19.
Wouldn't be complete without an embarrassing picture, right?
That's a great
that's the one. Can you see my suit is rolled up so much and it's drowning me.
But that was
Thanks, Dad,
that was 1984, so that was a great picture.
Yeah, so I was 2.
Okay. Yeah, it's you and I are about the same age. I was born in 80, so we're right around the same age.
Yeah. So I'm not far off.
Let's see. Taz says Master Noreen was born with her dobok on. She flew out of her mom.
Yeah, literally. I think. Yeah. If my dad had a choice, I'm sure I would be in dobok as I was born. Yeah, she's totally right. Oh, I love Taz. She's my cousin. She used to train. You know, everyone needs a cousin like Taz in their life, because she always has your back, especially when it comes to tanks and those stuff. So yeah, we trained together as we grew up. And I know she was going to tell you embarrassing stories, but I hope she doesn't.
She said she wouldn't, so.
She's got my back, it's fine.
So when you do, you know, the training memories that you remember from that age, was class all levels, like all ages? Was there a kids class?
Yes, sir. No, sir, no kids class. So I started initially, I think Dad briefly and Mum briefly spoke to you on the interview about when I started. So I initially started in this church that my mum started at, and it was freezing. And I can remember bits of it, but I was quite young. I was probably about 3, probably about 3. And you know, in them days there wasn't many kids. It was all, you know, men or boys, and even the kids would start a lot later than what they start nowadays. So I remember being at the back of the class and not being able to see much, because I was like at the back and Dad's at the front, and you know, and so I was familiar because it was my parents. But yeah, it was quite daunting. So I was at the back, and then I don't remember much of the class, but I remember at the end we were sparring, and I was like right at the back near the door, and the next kind of juniors, you know, person to spar with was a little bit taller than me, and he was quite a big boy, and he was an orange belt, and I was like, oh my God. And I was 3, like, how much can you remember? And I remember starting sparring with him, and I don't know if he kicked or punched or what, but he hit me quite hard in the stomach, and that was it. I completely had a meltdown. I'm never doing this again. Don't ask me to train again. I'm not doing this. And then they kind of just left me to it. So that was my initial first class as such. And then I came back, I must have been 6, yeah, around that age. And so all this time I've obviously been going to class, sitting at the back of class, you know, it didn't really faze me. And I don't even know why I initially thought that I'm going to go back now and I'm going to do this now. And so I asked my mum one Saturday, it was a Saturday night, I'll never forget. I said to her, oh, please, can I have a dobok? And she kind of looked at me like, you know, let's see how long this lasts again, you know, here we go, kind of thing. So she gives me a dobok, and I said, don't tell Dad, I'm going to surprise him. So I go in to see my dad before I went to bed, and I said, I've got a surprise for you in the morning. And I think he just thought, oh, here we go, kind of thing as well. So I come back early in the morning, he has a Sunday class, I come down, And it's like an early morning class. So I come down, full dobok belt, ready to go. And I'm like, I'm training, Dad, you know, here's your surprise kind of thing. And he was like, okay, that's fine. But this time, if you're going to do it, you know, I want you to fully focus into it, not like last time. And that was it. I went, and I think Master Whiskin briefly told you about the hall that we trained in. That is the same hall that I started at, also in a little town called St. Ives. And I started there, and yeah, training was a lot different then. So that was my first initial class. And then the funny thing is, we came home, and obviously he was so pleased that I'd started. Now, being the first one, I think he always in his heart would have liked me to train anyway. So I was training, and then Taz, my cousin, who you just spoke to, and her younger brother, they also trained. So we came home, we went into the garden, Dad got the camera out, and we were like, you know, I'm going to show you what I've learned today. So I did Seiki Ilbu, and I turned all wrong. I was doing everything in all different directions, and I thought I was great. You know, I'm like, yeah, I've gone to class, I know everything already, kind of thing. And he didn't say nothing to me. No, when I look back now, he literally didn't say anything to me. And yeah, so that's kind of my first actual vivid memory of training, and that they're great memories. We still look back and watch them now. Great memories of all three of us training.
That's great. So did you start around the same time as your mom, or was she
after mum? So initially, yes, you know, when she first started, because I was a lot younger, then the whole incident of getting winded happened, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So actually, I think she was quite ahead of me.
Okay.
Yeah, she's always been a higher grade than me anyway, so she has started ahead of me. So yeah, there wasn't, I know she's briefly mentioned this, there was no ladies when we came back. So there was me and Taz, like my cousin, and then there was mum and one other female, but the majority of the class, 90% of the class, was men and boys. And you know, at that time, I don't know if you kind of remember, but the late 80s, there was still, you know, gender stereotypes were still a massive thing. Equality wasn't a massive thing. So you're now in a sport that's predominantly for male, and you just get on with it. It wasn't, you know, I never thought, oh, I shouldn't be doing this because I'm a girl or anything. I mean, you could see there was lots of boys around us, but we just got on with it. Yeah. And like I said to you, training them was hardcore and, you know, old school training. So, you know, Dad would give you the look and you would carry on training. And there was no Time Tigers program. So you kind of would do what seniors did, and just you were just expected to get on with it. It's a totally different time frame to how we teach now. So yeah, and the funny thing about it all is actually the one thing that I like, the sparring side of it, what I gave up, you know, from in the first place, that was like my passion. I just wanted to spar every lesson, you know, like any other kid. I guess that's slightly in the DNA, because I might get that from Dad a little bit. He loves sparring in the early days. So yeah, I just wanted to spar all the time. Dad would say at the end of class, who wants to spar? And I would spar, and the guys would be huge. And you know, we got bashed about. There was no head guard, mouthpiece, any of that. You know, that was just how it was, and safety wasn't an issue. And you know, and yeah, so I was always used to training with the boys, and I know Mum was always used to training with the men. That's just how it was.
Right. Got a bunch of people saying hello. I just want to say a few. So Master Pat Marsh says that Mrs. Master Marsh said hi.
Master Claire Marsh, she's like my inspiration. Like I remember, like I said to you earlier, that when 1994 World Championship, and she was returning her cup that year, and that was my first kind of year of like being aware that there's a cup. And I was walking, she was doing her walk down the middle, and I'd been split like right near the center. And but prior to that, when you're in the middle and you're little, you can't really see a lot. So it was so nice being like close to the edge, and she walked down it, and I was literally in awe of her. I was like, wow, look at that trophy. And you know, so ever since then, her name kind of, you know, lingered around for me, that, oh, Master Claire Marsh, she's amazing. So yeah, she's always been my inspiration from the States. Lovely lady.
That's awesome. Tatiana Klein says hello.
Tatiana's from the Netherlands. She's lovely too.
Master Sharp from Texas says Tung Su.
Hi, Master Sharp.
Got Master Chapel says Master Noreen, the double champ.
Hi, Master Chapel. Thank you for the support.
Master Marco says hello. I hope you're all well. Hope we'll be lining up again soon. Natalie, let's see who else. I'm just gonna name a few here. Dean Evans says Grace said, "Ma'am." And
oh yeah, she's one of our students.
Master Couture Kelly says, "Awesome sparring round kicks."
Yeah, she's amazing. She was so pleased for me. You know, when you compete against someone and you're going for it, inspiring, and at the end you're just, you know, good mates. It's amazing feeling. You don't get that from most associations. So yeah, she's great. I love her, and we always will have that little bond.
That's awesome. Taz says original A team with the four of us and Joel Ortiz.
Yeah, Joel Ortiz used to train on the base. He was like an American kid that used to train with us, and we kind of all went up together and we tested for our black belt together. And then he went back to the States, and then Taz and her brother gave up, and it kind of just left me. So yeah, they were our little ace team. We were the little four of us. It was cute.
That's great. Before your dad shared a picture of you sitting on Grandmaster Shin's lap. Can you tell us some of
Yes.
your memories of him?
Oh, Grandmaster Shin, great man. So yeah, so when he first came over, I was really young, and Dad always told me the story of him carrying our buggy up and all that. So I had so much respect for him. And when I came there, he's always kind of been there for me. It's another one where I know the association's been around me. He was always around me because I can't really remember when they first joined. So as far as I was aware, Grandmaster Shin was always around. And we grew up with him, not like how now he has security and it's not as personal, but when he first came to GB, I was a baby and he would be lifting me and carrying me, and I had no grandparents on my mum's side, so I looked at him like my grandfather. And when your parents respect someone and you look up to someone so much, that kind of reflects back down to you. And yeah, he'd come and stay in our house, and I grew up. There's so many. I have, when you said, oh, have you got a memory of Grandmaster? There's so many lovely memories. He holds a special place in here for me, and I'm sad that my kids didn't know him like that. So Jay had met him when he was a baby and got a photo with him, but they didn't meet him like that. I don't know, just a special person for me. But yeah, I think one of the main, like I said, loads and loads of memories, but one of the main memories was he wrote an email to me after I had Jay, and I had tested for my 4th Dan stripe. And I could imagine, because I don't know if you know back then, but he used to write you a personal letter and say you passed, and you could tell by the grammar that Grandmaster Shin had wrote it, and he'd send your pin that you put on your official uniform. He'd send that, and he'd order your belt size for you. And I had this massive concern that actually I've put loads of weight having a baby, and that this belt's not going to fit me. So Dad was like, just email him. So I personally emailed him, and when he passed away, I found the email and it made me really emotional. And he just said in there, I forget that that you're no longer my baby, and and he's just, I don't know, he touched our hearts in so many ways. And yes, I respected him so much as a martial artist, and if we can even be as close as that at that age, I'd be so happy with myself. But just as a person, like my parents often would say, don't bug him, don't bug him. When they used to come and stay at our house, he had dinner with us, he was amazing person. Literally, I could go on and on about how much he impacted our lives in an amazing way. And yeah, void in my heart for when he passed away. Big void.
I think one of the main reasons I want to continue doing these interviews is to let people know the impact that he had on the lives of so many through the World Tang Soo Do Association. And like you said, my children never got a chance to meet him, and obviously many of our students didn't either. So thank you for sharing those memories.
Yeah, yes, sir. I can't. There's not enough words that I can put when I think about Grandmaster Shin.
All right, I got another one. Ready?
Oh God, Dad. Oh yeah, that I like that one though, because look how young Grandmaster Shin looks too. And I was a bit nervous around him first because I was quite shy. And then by the end of it, I was be sitting on his lap and we'd have conversations. And Dad was like, you can't do that kind of thing. And he would play and he would join in, and I would tell him about all kind of stuff. So yeah, it was great. It was literally like having a grandparent.
That's great. Still got a few people saying hello. Master Amarim from South Africa says hello.
Oh, she's lovely.
Got Rachel Crockett says, miss you, Master Noreen. Hello from Canada.
Oh, I miss Master Crockett. Yeah, she came to train with us a few times in Nottingham. So she was actually our runner for our first, I know we were going to talk about that, but when we did our first master clinic here, she was our runner for the first year. So we have an amazing relationship. She's actually really good friends with my middle sister. So yeah, we miss Master Crockett because she's now in Canada. So we don't get to see her as much as we'd like to.
So you talked about 94 going to the tournament. Then do you have when was the first time that you actually did a tournament?
So with Dad, I wasn't going to be, as soon as the tournament come up, you're doing it kind of thing. So yeah, I think I remember doing one as a white belt. So I fairly quick after I started training, I did one. And again, it was all about sparring. I just wanted to spar. I won my first trophy. Yeah, so fairly quick. I would say early 80s for the nationals, but you know, on the scale that the national was then was quite small. Like, but I did my first worlds was 1990, so maybe a year, 2 years after I started, I did the worlds, and Dad was very much like, if you go in, you're doing it. The same story that Mum told you, that you know, if we're there, you're part of the team, you're doing it. And I'm thinking, oh, but I don't know if you remember, the trophies were really, really big, and I won second in sparring, and I'm standing behind the trophy, and you can just about see my head over the top of it. So yeah, he started us fairly early with that, with competing, and I actually enjoyed it. I think growing up, competing was good. It was like your kind of way of that motivation to. I know a few other people have said this to you, like a motivation to want to train. It was never about the competition. It was that push to make you be better. It was that, you know, gave you something to train harder for, gave you something to be better for, to improve, to, you know, that was very much what competing was for us in the early days. And I think it changed a little bit as I got older, and I we became more aware, I think, of the world, and then realized that actually the pressures of being Master Khan's daughter was massive, and that, you know, people expected you to be superhuman. Like, you know, you were no longer just Noreen Khan. I was now Noreen Khan, Master Khan's daughter. And I wasn't aware of that when I was younger. You know, when I was competing in the 90s and whatever, it was quite nice to not have that pressure. And as I got a bit older and I got up to the higher categories, and, you know, competition got tough. So, you know, and Dad was very much like, you can't just like be sparring. You know, you need to work on be an all-rounder martial artist. He used to say it to all of his students. So yeah, I became really aware that I had to be this superhuman person. And then when I did do good, it was like I would hear comments like, "Oh, she only wins because she's Master Khan's daughter. You know, he must give her extra training at home. He must teach the girls at home, and he must teach Master D at home, and stuff like that." And that's so far from the truth. Like, we're just a normal family at home. We don't, you know, and I think in class as well, we kind of was a little bit neglected to push to the side, because his effort went into all the other students, and I rarely would ask him a question or watch my form or do this, you know. So then competition got different for me. I had like a love-hate relationship for it, where it was the thing that pushed me to train hard. It was the thing that motivated me loads, and was, yeah, but then I would be really, really nervous, because I would always think, if I did good, there's all these other things going on behind me, you know, the pressures of, well, yeah, it's one of them weird things, isn't it? But all a part of training, I guess.
Sure.
So yeah, and Dad was really good at keeping us grounded. So if we did do really good, like we didn't hear much praise from him. He was very much like, okay, you know, no one kind of remembers what you won last year. Now you need to focus on the next step. And we'd get home, and the night of the competition, I would literally sit and watch the videos, and we would self-analyze, and I would watch where I could improve. So even if I won, I still watched where I could improve, what I could do to make it better. You know, it wasn't focused on the winning. It was very much like, what could you do to better yourself? And then the next kind of week, we were back in class, and we were working on what we could see that needed improving on. So yeah, and that's how it worked. He was really good at keeping us grounded and keeping us humble, and, you know, just, yeah.
Yeah, that's I like the way you said that, and we talked about this earlier, where you said you saw Master Claire Marsh when she was bringing the cup back, and then once you got there, you're just like, it didn't, you know, it didn't feel the same, you know, from when you looked on.
No, yeah. Yeah, you know, when you're I think when you're little and you see her, and I remember, I don't know if you remember the name. Oh, you might not, because you said you started a little bit later at the Worlds, but there was a lady called Miss Jeanette Garner, and she was like, just before winning it, she was kind of there, and she won it quite a few times. And that feeling I got when I seen them walking down, and you're like a little kid, and you're just like looking up, and you just, yeah, but when I won it, it didn't feel like that. And I know half of that comes from Dad, where he kept us grounded. You know, it was all, your techniques will speak for themselves, you don't need to say anything, you know, kept us really, really humble and really, really grounded. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, I think that you don't get phased or like hazed by the kind of winning side of things all the time. It's not all about that either. So yeah, it felt completely different when I saw Master Marsh. You know, I think I'll always be in awe of her. And then when I won it, it just didn't feel quite the same. I was more nervous about dropping the cup or something like that down there. So
I feel like everyone is kind of that way. And what's funny is, when I talked to Master Marsh, she didn't even mention the fact that she won. We didn't even talk about it. And then when I talked to her husband, he talked about it, and we chatted. So that just kind of speaks to the fact that,
1,000 words. There you go. That's exactly it.
Cool. it's a great memory, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
you know,
And like when you wanted to interview me, I knew that that was going to come up, and I was thinking I don't really want to go on and on and on about it. So yeah, it's one of those things, and I think you need that. You need that yes, you've won, but you need to move on and get better, because that's the whole point in the competition, is bettering yourself. Not necessarily the people that you're competing with. It's you've got to make yourself better from it, or then
yeah,
you've not learned from it as such.
yeah. Master Chapel says, I'm sure there was little girls watching you doing the same, and there's something to be said about being role models, as a female and as martial artists in general.
Yes, sir.
But I think that it's important, like you said, and one of the quotes I love from your dad is that he said that you call him your legend, or our legend.
He is legend.
And he's just like, I'm just a normal guy. I'm just a guy.
Yes, sir.
And
he is a normal guy. Like, we know him as a normal guy. Can sometimes be an embarrassing normal dad, but I understand when he says, he does honestly, that's the impression that he honestly thinks, no, I'm not a legend. But for us, he will always be our legend. He will always be my legend. So he can say no, I'm not, but for me, he will always be that. He's my dad. So he might be Master Khan to everyone else, but he's my dad, isn't he?
But yeah, so it's the same way. It's like some people think like, oh, it's double champ, and it's like, yeah, that's part, but that's not even. That's a little.
I've always said that doesn't define me. Yeah, that's it. So I say this. So the kids that because obviously they weren't around, and Jay and Aaliyah never saw me compete or whatever. And I always say, the trophy's one thing, and they see it because the replacement cups. One of the replacement cups is here. They see it. So, but they were never around to see it. And I always say to my students that, I would love for you to be inspired by that. If that pushes you to do good and because for me it was never something that was achievable. That I didn't go to 2004 thinking I'm winning the cup. I went there. It was something that was unachievable for me. That cup was, not something in my eye line at all. Yeah, great. It was great that I won it. I'm not going to say it wasn't an amazing feeling. It was an amazing feeling, but that year I didn't go there thinking I'm going to win the cup. I was going there to do better than what I did in 2002. So, and I always say, like, if it inspires people, great. And I would like my students to kind of achieve higher. Maybe like you think you've got a limit, go for higher, like what I did that day, and push past that limit. You never know what can happen if you push past limits. So, but I also say on the same breath that, as an instructor now and as a master, cups, you can win the amount of cups you win and the amount of trophies you bring home, and the rank that you wear doesn't define you as a person, and it doesn't make you necessarily a better instructor. It doesn't make you better than another instructor. But ultimately, I think if you have a positive impact on people, that is what matters. Like, if I can make my students better versions of themselves, and if I can help them achieve their goals, that would mean more to me than the cup and stuff like that. But yeah.
Absolutely. It's it's the journey, not the destination. Like
yes, sir. I totally agree.
Like you were talking about, it's the build up of training, and then it's over, and then you figure out what you need to get better at, and then you move on and continue to improve.
Yes, sir. Yes, and actually 2004 was the first year that I'd got placed gold in weapons. So I was really happy that I'd placed the gold in weapons. There is actually a story behind that Master Khan, we have like a Monday Tiny Tigers class. I was actually at university during 2004, so I would commute home to train. So I don't know if you know, but if you're going to Master Khan's class, and even now throughout his time of teaching, that if there's a competition coming up, even as a master, if you go to train with it, if there's a competition coming up, that training level is going up a little bit. There's no specific training as such, but his classes are going to get harder. So if you're going, that's what it's going to be if you're going near a competition. So 2004 came, and I'm at university, and I'm in my second year, so I'm studying fairly hard, and I'm trying to juggle training every single night too. So I'd come back from lectures at 6 p.m. sometimes, and the road that I used was a bit of a nightmare. So I'd get home, dough box, straight back out again to train. So I'm not going to say I didn't train hard. I trained hard. He wouldn't let us not train hard, to be fair. So on a Monday, I used to take my sword. It was a Tiny Tigers class, and while the Tiny Tigers were getting their shoes on and leaving, I used to help assist Dad and Mum teaching the Tiny Tigers. I used to go in the corner, and I got my Jangum, my sword, and I was practicing. And he kind of said, didn't say too much the first time I was practicing it. And then weeks went on, and I'd keep practicing the sword, and he said to me, Noreen, don't you think you should do dagger in the world? Because he kind of knew what I wanted to do. And I was like, Dad, you know, this is the elite group. This is like the third Dan girls group. They're going to be hardcore, you know, girls. And he was just like, no, I think you should do your dagger. And I'm like, you know, being stubborn daughter, no, I want to do my sword. Everyone's going to do sword. I'm going to be the only one doing dagger, Dad. No. So it came to the night before we were getting ready to pack, and he packs all the weapons in this big plastic thing. And I brought my sword down, and I'd been practicing my dagger as well throughout. And he kind of said, no, you're packing your dagger, and that's kind of it. So I packed my dagger and came to compete in. And I remember Master Faith Gordon's interview. She said, oh, when I came back in 2004, I thought everyone's going to think, who is she? I don't, you know, no one's going to know who I am. And I was like, I knew who she was, but I felt like no one's going to know who I am because all the girls in the category are American. So I thought they're all going to know each other. I looked down the line and there was Master Faith Gordon, there was Master Jennifer Couture, there was all these, you know, names that, and me and Dad would often talk about competition, and, you know, we know who was tough. And same for 2006, Master Watson. I knew she was flexible and a strong lady warrior. And as a Master Mo's wife, Stephanie, she was in my group too. Yeah, so you kind of know. And I looked down the line and I knew exactly who Master Gordon was. And everyone had their sword and I had my dagger. And so did someone else have their dagger. And I was just like, oh my God, Dad, I told you, you know, I'm thinking in my head, he was off judging somewhere. Anyway, so what happens? I placed first in my weapons category. And I tell you the honest truth, because I don't know if you remember, 2004 was split. So you would do weapons on the Friday night and then Young's and sparring on the Saturday evening at the end of the day. Yes. So I'd won my gold and I was like, yes, tomorrow, because I was really, really nervous competitor. So I was like, I can eat breakfast tomorrow. You know, I've got my gold. I'm going home. It doesn't matter how tomorrow goes. And I went on the podium and he came over to me. He was like, I told you, you know, I told you should have done dagger. And I was just like, yes, I know. So the moral of that story is actually you should always listen to your instructor and you should always listen to your parent. And if they're your, you know, parent and your instructor in one, then you need to double listen. Because if it wasn't for him and I didn't get my gold in, you know, weapons that day, things could have turned out different. So yeah, please listen to your instructor, parent, double listen if they're both the same person.
I like that. I say that to my kids all the time. It's like,
yeah.
Turns out I know I do know what I'm talking about.
Yes, no, you do know what you're talking about, but I think I have the same problem. And it's so funny because I can see myself in them. Right. And I just think at some point in your life, you will realize, you know, like I did that day, that mum's right. And, you know, and they'll learn. So I just leave them to it now because I learned that day.
So going past that, when did you actually get the invite to go to Masters Clinic after?
So Masters Clinic in the UK is slightly different to the States because it was leadership at Masters Clinic when I was a Samdan. So it was early 2000s I got invited. I can't remember the exact date. So I've been doing them for a fairly long time because you weren't invited, you know, when you're ready to kind of be a candidate. You're more invited as a leadership from very, very beginning because we weren't obviously as developed as the US was at that time. So yeah, I went fairly early 2000s, I would say, to the first Masters Clinic, and it was great because I got to train with my mum, and you know, you look forward to it so much. That's the next step up from competing, and that's the next kind of exciting thing that's going to happen for you. So yeah, and we got to train with grandmas, and you actually train with the big guys because it's like all secretive, like what goes on there. Then it was like, you know, there was no social media where you knew what happened there. So yeah, it was actually an honor to be invited to the clinic. And again, it's so nice now to see so many women because it used to be me and mum a lot for the Europeans. She was the first female master in Europe to test, so there wasn't that many ladies to start with, and the group was very, very small. So you know, there was only like 30-40 of us when we first started doing the clinics. So yeah, so clinic has always been like that one part of the year that you look forward to doing.
Absolutely, it's always a good part, and it's a big void right now between black belt. You know, we don't have a black belt clinic, and then we have
yes, sir. Yeah. So our last one in 2020 got cancelled, and it was just a bit like you look forward to it so much, and now it feels like it's not come around for quite a long time.
Yeah. For us, we had Grandmaster Bowden died, and you know, it was so close to World or Masters Clinic, and we were looking forward to being able to get together and kind of train with everyone, and then that didn't happen, and you know, this one coming up is the same. So it's hard, but you know, like you said earlier,
So, but then you can flip coin it and say without Zoom, you wouldn't be able to do anything. So at least you get to kind of see everyone and say hi to everyone and get to train together. So yeah, it's great. It's actually brought, in some sense, people closer around the world. So that opportunity that we might necessarily not get.
Absolutely. I say it every time I do these interviews. You know, I would never have the opportunity to sit down and talk to yourself or, you know, people from all over the world for an hour at world championships or a master's clinic. So to have the chance to share stories is, you know, something that would never have happened without this. So, you know, that's definitely.
Yeah, and it's great to see so many parallels in people's stories, and you know, it's quite inspiring to watch some of them, to be honest. And you know, Dad always says we're only humans behind the belt, and I think it's great for the kids of this generation to be able to see that actually we all started, you know, as a white belt. We all started there. We all know how you feel. We all face challenges along the way, and actually, if we can do it, you can do it. You know, that same kind of attitude, and that's great that you're, you know, taking your time up to do that. You know, we really appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Jovel Zuniga says hello, Master Noreen.
Oh, he's true champ. We love Jovel.
Yeah, he's awesome. Brian from Brian Burkett. I'm blanking on what region you're from, sir. I apologize. I think it's 5. That's a pretty amazing story about the dagger versus sword. Thank you for sharing that. So I don't want to get off topic. I want to talk about you talked about the leadership clinic and master's clinic, and that's something that you help organize at this point, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So Mum became unwell in end of 2011, and we had our national championships booked for 2012, April 2012, because we set the date to book the hall ahead of time. So we realized that actually she was quite poorly and that she wasn't going to come out of hospital on time for the championship. And obviously we've always relied on her to do the paperwork. Like I said at the beginning, she's always done the paperwork. You know, she'd have the application forms all over the floor. And the one thing that I used to help with was I would see her kind of doing it, and I took half the weight, and she would put the people into divisions, and then I would write the competitor card out. So I kind of had an insight of actually how she does the championship. So I spoke to Dad, and Dad was like, you know, we really need to carry on with this. It's, you know, she's not going to maybe get out of hospital. And it was like it was a really, really difficult time for our family. It was the first time that she wasn't at an event, and you realize actually how much she does for the association, you know, like for GB especially, like she's the backbone. And when that person that you think is the strongest person in your life goes, it was really difficult to juggle. Anyway, so in that time, Dad had said, what do you think? Do you think you can kind of take that on board? And that was 2012 nationals. It was actually my little boy Jay's first time competing in Tiny Tigers division. So that's why I remember the date really clearly. So I actually didn't realize how much she did and how much involvement a competition took for GP nationals, you know. So you think you know, but you don't know, because I used to compete. I didn't really think about that side of it. So anyway, I took over, and we managed to kind of get it together and have help from Master Allen and other people, and we managed to actually have a championship. And then she announces the winners on, you know, the day, and does all that kind of role. And so I took over from doing all that, and actually it was quite difficult. Like I realized how much she did, and then I said to Dad after she got well, and thank God she got well and everything, that actually why don't I carry that on? Why don't I carry doing the championship and take that burden away from her, because she has so much to do anyway. So I said, if I can do it, I can, you know, and I can work it around the kids, and I don't mind doing it. So 2012 was actually held. We always try and have that national championships in the Midlands, like in the middle of the UK, so that everyone has the same kind of amount of traveling time, so it makes it easy for everyone. And we kind of were outgrowing that hall that year. So Master Indy Benning, he started training with me in in Nottingham, because he came to the University of Nottingham. So he started training with me at my class and came and helped and was a great help. And our relationship became quite good. Like a working relationship was amazing. So he said, oh, how about we look at the University of Nottingham in 2013? So then automatically, because it was here, it made it so much more easier for me, because, you know, the kids, I could just go and pop and see. So we go in for the competition meeting, we go and meet the manager, and we come out of the meeting, and Master Ben and the manager and the higher guys up in the university said, oh, you know, we have lots of functions here. We have the rugby guys come, we have this, we have that. And I'm like, okay. And then he looked at me, he was like, Master Noreen, why don't, you know, this would be a great place to host the Masters Clinic. And I'm like, oh my God, like we haven't even done the competition yet. You know, do you realize how much, you know, I've been doing Masters Clinic since early 2000s, and he had just kind of started doing Masters Clinic. And I'm thinking, that is so much responsibility. I watched Mum actually organize one at the beginning of 2000 in Cambridge, and I knew how much, you know what it was more that responsibility that you have for them people's experiences of the year. You know, I know how much I look forward to that, and now that responsibility is in my hands. Like, that's a massive thing. But on the flip coin, I was like, that's an honor to be able to host a clinic. So anyway, we were meant to be focusing on championship, and it ended up going to, this would be a great place to have a clinic. So we hosted the championship. It went really, really well. And then in 2015 we hosted the first Masters Clinic in Nottingham. So I had help with Master Benning, and I think it's really, really important that you have a good working relationship with the person that you kind of are organizing things with. So yeah, he's great, and we work really, really well together. So we did 2015, and then we did 2018 back in Nottingham, and then we did 2019 back in Nottingham, and then 2020 got cancelled, and then obviously we have 2021, hopefully, fingers crossed, will actually take place. So yeah, so it's been an amazing experience organizing that. You know, you face some challenges on the way that you have to kind of think quick for, and we have an airport like not far from here too, so it was just so ideal that, you know, they can fly in there, we can pick them up, you know. And yeah, for those masters that have come over already from the States, that it's really different to, I've not been to the US Masters Clinic, so I've heard that it's just a little bit different. There's a lot less people, so it's a little bit more personal than what it is in the States. So yeah, over the years we've had so many masters come over. Master Godwin's been over, when it wasn't here, it was in Wales. Master Valentin's been over, Master Jenna, Master Inashota, Master T, we had, yeah, so we've had, it's great that we can have some of the masters. And then Master Morum, obviously she told you her mum lives here, so she's come over a few times, and Master 4 from the Seychelles has been over. So yeah, it's just, you know, it's actually, like I said, it's hard work, but it is an honor to host it.
That's great. And if anyone wants to come over, obviously you're
yeah, our doors are always open. We love having, like, you know, other masters come over and to train together. That's just an amazing, you know, we see each other like this now, so it'd be great to have you, Master Mrs. Watson, and, you know, anyone. Our doors are always open. You know, you just get in touch and we will always kind of collect you from the airport. And yeah, it'd be great to have some different masters come over and get to meet you in person.
There you go, open invitation. So you know, hopefully this year, if not, you know, going forward, we'll
fingers crossed this year happens. Hey.
So Master Wiskin says hello.
Hi,
Master Fairley says 2003. He came, I guess he came over in 2003 and said it was a great clinic.
He did, yeah. He came over in 2003, and he came to the Masters Clinic for that year as well. So yeah, we had the pleasure of having him over here.
And Master Marco says you and your team do a great job.
Oh, thank you, Master Marco. He's awesome. Our regular for our UK Masters Clinic, and we meet him at the airport. And yeah, you know, when you meet people at the airport and you have that conversation on the way home and you get to know them on a different level, it's actually really nice.
Sure. So we talked about Master Claire Marsh being a role model, and obviously your parents as well. Who are some of the role models that you look up to in World Tong Soo Do outside of those people?
Oh, outside of those people, you're making it difficult, aren't you? There's so many, isn't there, that you look up to, but like Dad will always be my number one. It just is one of those things, isn't it, that, you know, if I can kick like that at that age, then that would be absolutely great. But yeah, and then Mum is my lady warrior, and she went through some really tough times to carry on, so she's my inspiration to keep training and keep battling through all the tough times. And, you know, it's not easy for women. You know, we have babies and all sorts along the way, and, you know, I don't mean this like in a sexist way, but men's lives don't really stop. So for us, you know, like I had Aaliyah and Jay, and I was teaching with Aaliyah the night before I had her, and, you know, you try and maintain as much as you can, but you actually, it's hard, you know, and then you've got to put your children first, and it's a difficult one. But yeah, so many. Master Claire Marsh is one of them. There's so many people that I look up to, you know, all the senior masters, Master Godwin, obviously, Grandmaster Bowden and Grandmaster Strong. I mean, they do an amazing job too. Not even, you know, I respect all of them as martial artists, but to fill boots, you know, of other people is a massive, massive commitment. And And I just think Grandmaster Bowden did an amazing job stepping in when Grandmaster Shin passed away, and as has Grandmaster Strong stepping in for Grandmaster Bowden passing away. So yeah, inspired to be like that. You know, if I could be like that as well, and you know, follow in these leading footsteps, then that's the kind of thing. It's not just the kind of martial arts side of it, but as people, yeah, they inspire me so much. But yeah, there's all the senior masters out there that you know, that you get to know. I think Master Valentin for me was a big one because he was always really young, and you like looked up to him as a master, and you know, training with him when he came to the Masters Clinic here in Wales and all that kind of thing. Like I remember as a young age they called him Baby Master. He mentioned that and I was giggling to myself because that's how I knew him. And yeah, so when you're young and that's someone you look up to and you inspire to be, and you'll think, wow, you know, you can be a master at that age. It's like, you know, it's great. So yeah, all them kind of people all inspire me to, you know, be better, to push past, and you know, and then I have my sisters who support me along the way, and we kind of all feed off of each other. So it's amazing. Yeah, just there's so many people that I could mention sitting here that I don't think we've got all day to think about. And then you've got senior masters like Master Carter, he's great, you know, Master Wiskin and Master Butcher, they're all, and there's all people that are standing to my right in the line, so you always look up to these people, you know, technically and as people.
Outside of going, you know, to the leadership clinics and masters clinics and world championships, have you had the opportunity to do traveling to train or teach in different places?
Yeah, so when I was younger, obviously Dad went quite often. Now that I've moved out, it's a little bit different. So, and then I obviously have my own family and the kids are at school, so it makes it a little bit more different. But when I was living at home, we flew to the Seychelles and Master 4 was actually training then, but he was a lot lower grade. We went to the Seychelles. We've traveled, you know, Tank Slow's given us the opportunity to travel so much. It's been amazing. So, and you know, I don't know if many people can say that they have that unit with their family either. You know, me and my sisters growing up, we're all, and mum and dad are all fairly close as a family. And then on top of that, you have Tank Slow, that same love and passion that you share for something. And I'm really blessed to have that. And then traveling around the world with on top of that, you know. So yeah, Dad would go to teach, obviously, and we were younger. We were too young to stay home, so we would go and we would go to the seminars. And we've been to Samos in Greece and met some really lovely people. And you know what I've learned from traveling as well is that we teach when we go out there and help maybe the juniors, and you know, as we were younger growing up, we helped people and we would help Dad teach if it was a big seminar. And these kids, some can't, you know, we're not very good because we can only speak English and they can't speak English back, so you kind of share this bond. As soon, you may not be able to communicate through language, and then as soon as Dad would say Seiki Ilbu, we all knew what we were doing, you know, we all know what an upchugi is, we all know. So it's great that this association, even if you can't speak through language, just that communication can still be there through like the love that you share for the association and the martial arts. So yeah, so I've learned so much traveling, and you know, you meet so many amazing people as well, and you realize actually that Tank Sado is not just about you and being in this little bubble at home, that it's actually worldwide, and that there's so many people doing the same thing as you, and that, you know, share the same kind of love they have for the association. And yeah, amazing association that allows you to do that.
Master Ford shared a story of you, and I believe it was you and your mom taught a class in Seychelles.
That was so awkward that night, Master Watson. So awkward. I remember it clearly. It was, you know, and Dad's culture is a little bit, so when we were younger, Dad's culture is a little bit like that, where, you know, the men are quite macho and the women take the kind of role. It's changed loads now, but at that, so that kind of growing age. So I remember like they kind of just said to us, Master Noreen, I wasn't even a master, Noreen and Dawn, you're taking the class tonight, I've got to go to a meeting, Dad said. And me and Mum looked at each other like, are you actually real? There's no women here. There was not one woman. And it's so great now to see women in the Seychelles. And so we walked round and round, because the island's like round around a circle. So we walked to the dojang that they had, and it was so hot. It was really, really hot. And we're from like a freezing cold country. And we get there and it was just awkward silent when we walked in. You know, we walked in and they're like, these women are going to teach us what kind of thing. And I was just like, oh dear, this is going to be really awkward. And then some of them didn't speak English either, so you know, it was quite an awkward atmosphere. And then again, that whole, as soon as you start training, that bond comes back. And yeah, Master 4 I shared that story, and I was giggling because I actually remembered it quite clearly. And then actually when we started training, they gained a little bit more respect for us and realized that maybe, you know, it's not all about women and men being separate, that it's just about martial arts and, you know, training and kicking and punching together. And yeah, it was a good class at the end of it all, but I remember it being really, really hot. And a little bit awkward to start with, and then at the end they had so much respect for us. And Seychelles was an absolutely amazing place to visit. I would love to go back and see him now and see how much he's developed in that time, because we went in, I was 16, so I think it was late 90s maybe. And my little baby sister was only 3, and yeah, so it was a beautiful island to go to. But I know he's developed so much since then, so it's great to see how much he's, you get to see how much better they've got over time as well.
Right. Your mom said we did prove women can train hardcore too. It's the classic don't judge a book by its cover.
It so is. If you felt like this, I know, when we trained in them days, like you didn't leave, like you don't leave to go and, you feel like you're going to collapse, you just do that gracefully in the corner, that's the kind of attitude. And I'm so glad, I look back now and I'm so glad I trained in them time. That made you resilient as a person. Like it makes you tough. Like, and I look now and I always, me and the younger masters that used to train with Dad when we were like juniors, we were all like, oh, Moscow's getting soft, but actually I don't think he is getting soft at all. I think times are changing, and that you have to go with them times. You have to go with these children and kind of be on their level, and obviously safety, rightly so, because we used to fight and used to do sparring together, and the contact was heavy, probably is the best word to use. There was no holds bar. You got to remember, we were like women fighting like big men, and they didn't hold back. We got bashed about and all sorts. So, but we didn't know no different. That, nowadays that would be seen as, oh my God, the safety issue behind that would be like, no, that's not, you don't do that kind of thing. But yeah, so it's just all we knew. So yeah, we trained in hardcore times, and I'm actually really, really happy and grateful that I got to train during that period, and it made you tough. It made you resilient for life too. So it was good.
That's right. I still, and lately I've been trying, not like yelling at kids, but pushing to make class a little harder, to make sure that they understand the importance of kind of pushing through things, and to get a workout, since kids aren't as active right now, not being at school all the time and things like that. So
yeah, so no, I totally agree with that. Like, and they kind of look at you like, what are you talking about, when you start doing burpees and making it a little bit harder for them. They're not used to it, whereas we were used to doing that. So we used to do some really crazy stuff, really crazy stuff, when I think back.
Master Nigel Crockett says, I think the men got bashed, if truth be told.
Master Crockett was actually, we tested him when I tested for my 5th dan. He was my sparring partner in the testing, at the end of the testing. And you don't normally get to spar with these guys, so it was great. But yeah, we when you spar with men and there's no holds bar, honestly, you just don't know. And I think there was an injury every lesson, to be honest. Not God, that sounds like we inflicted them, but we didn't always inflict them. It was just it was just normal to be a bit more harder at sparring and stuff like that. So, but yeah, thanks Master Crockett for that.
So believe it or not, we're right at an hour, and so
actually,
you've survived.
Yes, I survived. No more running and hiding from you.
Is there, as we start to wrap up, is there anything that we haven't touched base on that you want to talk about, or anything you want to share, or message you want to give to the people that are watching?
Yeah, I think I've got some thanks to do, if I've got time to quickly do them.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a massive thank you to both Conjure Nim, Sheehan and Grandmaster Bodwin. I don't think they realise how much impact they had on my family's lives. Like, they will never realise that, and I'm forever grateful for them being there and kind of developing this, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't all be sitting here doing this at the end of the day. It would be a totally different story. And then Grandmaster Strong is doing an amazing job at leading from the top. Total admiration for that and commitment, and he leads in such a great way that we're really lucky to have these people at the top, like, leading in the way they are. And I always say this, my kids and my husband, and the sacrifices he makes to allow me to train and allow me to continue doing what I love doing. I don't think he realised when we first were together that how much Tank Sado would take of my life. So it's great to have that support. And he doesn't train, but 100% supports me in it. But yeah, my biggest thank has to go to my parents and my sisters, because obviously without them I wouldn't be who I am today. And I know Dad always says to you, he's not a legend, but he'll always be my legend. So yeah, honestly, so grateful that they gave us this life, and they made us a part of this amazing thing that you can't explain. I think you, and I try to explain to my husband sometimes, like, you can't describe how you feel being a part of this association. It's something that you have to feel when you, same thing when you go to the world, you have to, that feeling is just there. You can't, the GBTSD family are like family for us. We grew up with these people. They're like my brothers and sisters, and when they have pain, I have pain. When they have happiness, I have happiness. It's that same kind of thing. And I'm so grateful to my parents for, yeah, there was challenges along the way. Yes, there was hard times in our life, but that I'm blessed to be a part of that, and I'm blessed that they made us a part of that. So yeah, massive thank you to my parents, because I wouldn't be who I am today without both of them. And I always say, behind every great man there's an amazing woman. So my mum sometimes doesn't get as much recognition as she should, and she should get as much recognition. And Dad would always say on that note that he's not a one-man band. GBTSD would not be what it is today if he didn't have Mastercard and his senior masters behind him. And I totally agree with that. But on the flip coin, if we didn't have him and the sacrifices he made, and him committing his life, and I watched them firsthand, like what he went through and how much he gave of his life to tanks today, then GBTSD wouldn't be with what it is today without him either. So we all, as on behalf of GBTSD, I always say that credit where credit's due, and it all should go to Dad.
Awesome. I think that's a good place to finish. Thank you for joining me. I know
thank you for making me feel comfortable.
My pleasure. I know it was you're a bit stressed.
Yeah, just a little bit.
just a bit.
Just a little bit. I can sleep now.
Yeah, so thank you for joining me, and I appreciate you're taking the time out to talk to everyone. And like you said, hopefully going down the road, whether it's at Worlds or hopefully one of these days I'll get a chance to come to the clinic in Great Britain.
Yes, sir. That would be great. It'd be great to see you guys. And same to you. Thank you so much for taking your time out, because I know you have kids, and I know that's not easy, because I have my own downstairs. And I know Mrs. Watson gives up your time together as well for you to do this. And I know it's not just this 1 hour, because you've been messaging me, and you've got a lot of organizing to do behind the scenes. So honestly, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing to see some of these stories.
It's my pleasure, and I love doing it. It's it's become like a labor of love for me now, where I can't imagine not doing it. Right?
Yeah, no, it's been great, and you can see how many you can get through now, can't you? You can do as many as you can, so it'll be great. And now I can forget about mine too, so that's even better.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate the support, and like I said, we'll see you down the road. Tang Su, man.
We will. Thanks, Sue. Take care. Bye.